My name's Anthony Powell, and I'm lucky enough to be directing the Moors here at the Arvada Center this year.
And I'm Lynn Collins. I'm the artistic director for plays here at the Arvada Center Black Box. And we're just gonna have a conversation about what we're up to. So when I first sent you the Moors and asked if you were interested in directing it, what grabbed you?
Well, two things to begin with. First of all, how funny it was, and then what an emotional punch it packed by the end of it. The play is so many things. Jen Silverman, the playwright, she has packed everything but the kitchen sink into this play. And when I try to describe it to friends, which is not the easiest thing in the world, the best capsule description I've come up with is that it's a neo-Gothic Bronte sisters comedic mashup. What does that mean? But it is this loving satire on Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. It's a mystery. It's a romance, it's about women's empowerment, and also just about the very human need to be seen and to be understood, and what that means in the world. As you said, women writing themselves out of a life that may not be the life they're really choosing.
The hardest thing was giving it up to you, I have to say. Now that we're done, I do that where I fall in love with these plays and I pick them because I love them, and then I have to give them, adoptive parents to bring them up, and I love what you're doing with this. Which sort of brings me to Sin Street, our sort of sister project that I'm directing, which is so different, except that what it shares in common with the Moors is these women trying desperately to figure out a way to live a life that they control in some way.
Right.
And Sin Street, we're in 1916 New Orleans at a time in the red light district of New Orleans. And at a time where your choices as a woman were get married, be a prostitute, be a maid, I suppose. That's sort of the limits of life. And like the characters in the Moors, who are sort of plunked down in a life that they're trying to figure out how to take control of, these girls in a very different kind of play are doing the same thing.
And when I saw the first read-through of Sin Street, I was taken by that. I mean, it's a wild farce. It's out there in that way, and really funny. But yeah, I was moved by the characters. Their struggles seemed understandable to me and like my own, which I thought was great.
Yeah, it's wild physical comedy. It's at chases and people hiding behind masks, and plays a little bit like a big broad Shakespeare comedy in that the sort of mistaken identities and the idea that if you put on a mask, suddenly people don't know who you are anymore, and you get to say whatever you want. So it's funny, physical, wild farce. It's also exploring a play that most people don't do anymore, although you study it in school, The Rover, in this brand new light. So it's a new look at, I sometimes describe this as a conversation between Afra Ben, who was a restoration playwright, and Jessica Austin, modern actor, writer, improviser, having this conversation about this story. And so it feels both modern and also period. It has, it's very theatrical. It's not, kitchen sink realism in any sense of the word. Like I said, there's jazz, there's, it's a party. I mean, I think that, it's just a big, silly party, and some of the party guests drink too much and make dreadful mistakes, and some of the party guests get to leave with the cute guy at the party, and others go home alone, and it's just got that sort of feeling that I hope audiences feel like they've just been invited into this big, wild, crazy party. Plus we get to use all this great jazz, and there's prostitutes aplenty, and a pirate's character, and fights, and it's just silly. It's so silly and so much fun.
Any play with pirates and prostitutes,
I say
there.
yay. Yeah. Well, you had me at
You
pirates.
had me at pirates and prostitutes.
But it's also, for me, it's all silliness in every way except that it's not, because within this world all the female characters have the same problem, which is, how do I make a life that I get to have some control over? And while it's done with a very light touch, and it's very silly and very sort of mistaken identities and masks and love affairs and all those sorts of things and misconnections, it's also real to me. I really want these girls to get what they're after. I want these women to get to have a life they want, which is exciting to me. And it's just exciting to do a new play. So world premiere of a play. Nobody's ever said these words or, played these characters or figured out what this story's about yet. And that's thrilling.
It is thrilling. Well, and the Morris is not a premiere, but it's a regional premiere. And it's so interesting because, you have this cast and you feel like you're explorers if it's a regional premiere.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all kind of planting our flag, at least in the Rocky Mountain region, on this play. And it's so interesting to me when you compare kind of doing a new play with a play that everybody's seen before. In some ways, I feel the responsibility to the playwright much more than I would normally. But on the other hand, it's kind of a relief, because if you're doing Hamlet, I feel this great responsibility, like I've got to come up with the new thought about Hamlet, the new idea for Hamlet. And really, it's hundreds of years old. There are no new ideas about Hamlet. It's been done and said. You just have to find your way through it. But I feel this responsibility, whereas with a new play, there's a kind of a wonderful fun and relaxation in we need to get the best cast we can possibly get, which we have with this production. The cast is awesome. And I need to tell the story as best I can and let the playwright speak and try as best as I can to let that out. And luckily, with a playwright like Jen Silverman, you've got a lot to speak. So
No, we have the additional thing of having the playwright in the room when you're doing a premiere of a play. So Jess is often in the room with us, rewriting literally in the room. Sometimes, just seeing something and going, oh wait, I can make that better. Or an actor will do a bit and she'll say, oh, it's in the script now, So it's this really fun collaboration, but also a big, burden's the wrong word, a weight of, this is the first time anybody's done this play. I want to do the best possible production of this play for Jessica to launch it into the world. Anything you would say about any sort of difference between working on plays by women, female playwrights versus male playwrights? Is any kind of distinction you would draw there, or?
Well, there was a great moment, back to Jen Silverman's short stories, which they're so amazing in terms of the themes that are in the plays are also in the short stories. So I actually printed up a bunch of those and gave them to the actors to try to get into the world of Jen Silverman. But one of these stories, there was a guy mansplaining in the story. And I knew the term, and I always thought it meant men, when we get it into our heads to explain, you need a number 3 socket wrench and blah, blah, blah. I thought that's what it was. But no, in fact, it's about men going, let me tell you about feminism.
Yeah.
So, and I read that about 3 weeks before we started rehearsals, and I went, thank you, Jen Silverman, because I think this was a personal warning to me to go into rehearsal and not be explaining feminism to a room full of wonderful women who are acting this play. So, I think for me, it's just that it's all just human. We're all just trying to get the same things. I mean, the play deals in such beautiful ways with happiness and love, the nature of happiness, the nature of love. Happiness being this ephemeral thing that the minute we have it in our hands, or we think we do, just by the very nature of trying to hold on to it, we can lose it, we can bungle it. That's such a theme in this play, her other plays, and the stories. And this kind of, aching loneliness that is part of the human experience. So that's true for women, that's true for men. But in our society, unfortunately, even during this wonderful Me Too moment in our history, it's still ridiculously unfair. And as a privileged guy, You know, I'm kind of surprised every day in rehearsal at things maybe I'd thought about in an intellectual way, but as we're working on this very feminist play in rehearsal, the things the actresses mention, the things that come up in discussion, things I say that are sometimes kind of ham-fisted or bogus, you know, and I kind of go, oh my gosh, that's my stereotype, that's my idea. Well, you always hope that you're learning something by working on a play, even as you're trying to open up the play for the audience, and I certainly am. So that's a good thing, and perhaps my wife Julie will thank you for giving me this play.
Yeah.
I think she'll owe you.
Yeah.
I hope so.
You said the thing about learning something, and I have at my age and where I am in my life, that is sort of my rule now for projects that I do, which is, am I going to learn something about the world, or am I going to learn something as a director? Is this something that challenges a skill that I feel I need work on or whatever? And otherwise, I'm just not interested anymore. You know, I just kind of want to have that selfish experience of, you know, exploring a world I don't know. And as a director, you do all this research, so you suddenly become, you know, you're a big Bronte expert now, which you weren't.
I was not.
Coming into this, you know, you get that fun thing where you get forced into a world. There's in Sin Street Social Club, it takes place in Storyville, which is this red light district, the biggest red light district in America from the turn of the century till the 20s when it was shut down. I am an expert on the red light district in New Orleans, and prostitution and the sort of graft in the government and all that stuff. And next, I have a family member who lives in New Orleans. Next time I go there, I get to take that. I get to wander around and I'll see those places and know that, which is one of the greatest parts of directing, is you get to become a little bit of an expert on. You know just enough to be dangerous on a million subjects.
A million subjects.
Yeah, which I love.
And for this one, yeah, how did I get to be my age and never have read the Brontes? So not only finding out about their lives, which really do hinge on the play to a great extent, the biographical details, but reading Wuthering Heights for the first time, and no one prepares you for it. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's insane.
Yeah.
And very modern in that sense. You just go, this is wild. Why don't they tell you that in school?
Yeah.
So again, the education continues.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing about this part of the job and everything. I learn a little bit about set design. I learn a little bit about sound design, and you just keep getting to take new things in. And you don't get to learn that much once you're grown up, you know, unless you have lucky enough to have this sort of job, which I love. With both of these plays, I'm always interested in inviting the audience to just, I sometimes use the analogy of the Wine of the Month Club, where you sign up and sometimes you get a bottle of, you know, Chardonnay, and you're a Chardonnay fan, and winning, you're happy. Sometimes you get a bottle of something that you never would have tried, but you end up loving it. It becomes part of your tastes. And sometimes something, you open it up and it goes down the drain. It's just not you. And that a season of plays, I hope sort of people can have that sort of openness to, in the same way, which is all of our plays in the rep ask a different thing of the audience, ask a different suspension of disbelief, a different sort of openness to maybe some bafflement sometimes, some discomfort sometimes, some feeling like it's too much, or it's, you know, what, all those things. And the hope is that audiences just at the end go, oh, I'm so glad I sampled all those. That was a great taster. I don't know that one's my taste ever again, but man, I'm glad I tried it. Now I know.
I've been coming to the shows the last couple of years going, you know, really enjoying the work so much, and then driving home going, I wish I could do that, you know, feeling like the kid with his nose up against the glass, kind of looking in at all the people having dinner and having fun conversation together. So I feel really grateful to be a part of it.
And I that you are part of it. As you know, I've been seeking you for a long time. So this is a perfect joining of both of our interests, I think.
Yeah.